I'm Tim Dolan. I'm a pastor over at Emmanuel in Greenville. This is Phil Hayes. Phil's also a member of Emmanuel Greenville. Reason Phil is here, he is the director, or I should say the board chairman there for Safe Families in the Fox Valley area. He's also on our ministry board at Emmanuel. And so what we're going to talk about today together is just this whole idea of connecting with the nonprofit community. And I guess I'm not going to talk at all really about should a church be working with those who should be doing compassion ministry, all those kind of things. End of the day, right? Old Testament, New Testament, early church history. God cares about justice. God wants us to feed the poor, to help the needy, all those kind of things. That's all a part of the mission of the church and why we're here. And so it's just a really big part of the church's job. I guess the challenge, right, we have is how do you do it? Because, right, we live in a time when the federal government kind of taken over a lot of what the churches used to do generations ago. And so how do you get into that space when they're in that space? And so now I think what you're starting to see is they're starting to pull out of that space for a lot of different reasons. And so there's this void in communities right now. You ever heard the acronym ALICE? Asset Limited, Income Constrained Employed. It means you're making like $50,000 or $60,000 total. You're a family of four, but you can barely eat, hard time paying their rent, buying gas. So they're working, they're struggling, but they're not even getting ahead, just the opposite. And so that's a huge hole inside of this structure in America and even in our communities. And so what I want to talk about today is just how we at Emmanuel are doing this and how and why there's even a reason to do it. So for instance, so you have all of these nonprofits and communities, and what they're looking for or what they need is what the church has. So we have people and we have resources, but we don't really have access to this part of the community with our people and resources. If I at Emmanuel go into the nonprofit organizations of Appleton as a church and say, what can I do for you? Like the main funding crews, they're not going to fund me. They probably aren't going to let me come into that space because of our religious affiliation. But there's all of these nonprofits that are working inside of that space. They have structure, they have access, they know how to do it. What they need is people. And so what you're seeing more and more in this nonprofit world, you have these non-religious nonprofits, right? They're not churches, they're not Christian organizations. They're set up in a way that is not part of that world, but their main resource is the Christian community. And it's actually a really neat opportunity now to work with them. And so that's what we're talking about. I think in this space is what's hard is, right, we know, I think the church always wants to do this, but we don't know how. We don't know why we don't part of it. We're too small, right? I think, again, I'm at Emmanuel Greenville. We are not too small. And so I don't want you to think that if I'm a small church, I can't get involved in this stuff. When you look at our sheet, what you're going to notice is our involvement, it's more the volume and how many we work with is because we have right around 3,000 members. And so we need a lot of people if a lot of people want to serve. So you need less than 10 people, I think, to get involved in a very meaningful way in this kind of work. I think our thing is we don't know where to start. Like, how do you look at the landscape of nonprofits in your community and say, how do I even get into that world? It's really challenging. It's risky. It might fail for sure, right? We're always pretty timid about doing something brand new, especially in a spot where the church is not used to being. And I think the last one is, in Wells' world, we are used to outsourcing all of this. I think I was probably guilty of this years ago too. We have the CMO as churches. We give to the synod, which is a good thing. But at the end of the day, this is not the synod's job. They're there to do things that we can't do ourselves. They're out there. They're not in my community. That's not their job to do things in Greenville, Wisconsin, in Appleton. And so that is my job, local church. And this is what I really think is a lot of fun. And one of the things I think that stops churches is myself. I'm one of the roadblocks to this. As a pastor, I am the person that opens or closes doors to everything in my church. And we are busy and we are kind of tired at times of programs. And when the person from Safe Families first asked me about this, hey, we need to do this, I was very real and transparent and kind of shut most of the doors to her. And also my wife, so I can do that. I am, because she was a part of this organization. But essentially, I don't have to do anything other than allow them a table in the back of church. I give them access to our email. I might talk about them in a sermon at our ministry fair, right? Essentially, my job is to open up the door and then let them kind of handle everything else. So my involvement outside of that is all now by my choice. The fact that I am a huge part of the Safe Families community isn't because that's part of my job as pastor. It's because that's what I chose as for my family, that we chose to do all this together. And so that's the one big thing, right? We want to just make sure that as a church, we have to be able to open up the doors to these things. And if you're a layperson here, realize that we are all really busy. All of us are, pastors included. But we are never too busy for things that we want to do. It just means that I am not going to prioritize something else, right? I am never too busy. I choose the time, and it just means that I am not going to make time for this organization. That's what we really say if we say we're too busy. And just a different thought. I want everyone just to kind of be aware of that. I think before Phil talks about Safe Families and what he does, the question is, like, how do we even choose partners to partner with? And we have a criteria that it's not anything, it's just how you kind of think about it. It's got to be local impact. So what's going on in the Fox Valley area? So here's the deal with Greenville. Our median income is like $130,000. This is a true statistic and a story. A couple years ago, they did a community survey. What's the biggest need of Greenville? And the community said a water park. Because that's what we serve. We're very well off. We have no affordable housing in our community. We have no public transportation, no bus routes make it out there. We are so blessed. The issues we have in Greenville when it comes to like social economic are usually because a lot of these families have way overextended their lives if they're barely making ends meet. They're living in a $500,000 house, but they might be scared tomorrow whether or not they're going to go bankrupt. But that's not because they don't have this support system now. It's because they've just made some really bad choices. So we have to actually say, okay, where can we extend a little bit outside of Greenville? It's Appleton, right? 5 minutes now, we're in a new part of the community. It's kind of nice. It's got to fit our mission. And so we don't partner with nonprofits that are more into activism and political causes. That's just I just don't want to get involved with that. When the more you do this, you get invited to different conversations. And when they start kind of going down that road, I don't publicly disagree with them. I just know that, okay, this probably isn't a group that I'm going to invest any of our church's resources or maybe even promote. And they got to have real need. Every nonprofit is doing a good thing, but some are very, very well funded, right? The United Way, the Boys and Girls Club, the YMCA, right? Those are really good organizations, but they do not need Emmanuel's resources. They are drawing from every part of the country, and they're doing really good work. That kind of do with like good stewardship. We don't partner with groups that have a high overhead, tons of employees, big buildings, full-time staff, ton of that. It's got to be kind of ground roots, very organic, very volunteer-oriented, which means a little bit messy, but that makes it kind of fun to be a part of an organization like that. There's got to be a relational connection, which means my people of our congregation have to be able to help inside of that. This is not a check from Emmanuel. This is where can our people and our resources get put into action? And so if they don't have that, then that's really not going to be somebody we're going to partner with. People have to be able to serve inside of this. And then the last thing, it's got to be some kind of community gap. And that's pretty, like I said, Greenville doesn't have a lot of gaps unless I want to build a water park on our property, which would be kind of fun, actually, now that I say it out loud. We have a lot of property. We'll have the board meeting on Monday. We'll talk about that. But where's the need? How does it fill it? And now, right now, Emmanuel's inside of our community. And that's what we want to really do. Here's a really important thing. every church, big or small, struggle with volunteers, right? It's brutal, trying to get people to volunteer for stuff. It's gotten worse after COVID. But I was just listening to a podcast. It's called Church Lobby. It's a really good podcast about just nuts and bolts church work. And they say it's not because people don't want to volunteer today. They just don't want to volunteer for the stuff the church wants them to do anymore. Snow shoveling, yard work, usher, childcare, right? It's hard to get those people to do that. What people want to volunteer for is things that actually make a difference and make an impact. And I've seen this firsthand now. When we ask for help, I can't get people to come clean up the church property. But if I make a request from any of these different nonprofits, boom, within a day, 24 hours, I got a ton of people that are resources and help. And so I really do see this. So if you say, oh, no one ever volunteers, we're not going to volunteer for this, I will say that's just the opposite. These are things that get people excited. And when you hear Phil talk, you'll see how he gets excited for this kind of stuff too. So the reason we're talking about Safe Families, and Phil talked about Bio Girls briefly, is because Safe Family goes from Green Bay all the way down to Fond du Lac. There's Milwaukee, Dane County, Racine, Kenosha, Minnesota. It fits all of this criteria, and it's accessible to most of the congregations that probably are here, most of them, not everybody. And it's just a really neat way for churches to kind of put people into action and make a big impact. I'll let you go, Phil.
Well, hello. Thank you for joining. Again, I'm Phil Hayes. I have the privilege of working alongside Tim in a variety of different capacities at our church. I am the church president because Tim made me. I am the chairman of the board for Safe Families. I have a full-time job. I also run a Bio Girls site. My wife and I teach Sunday school. We have 2 little girls that are incredible and do all of these things together with us. But that wasn't always the case for me. I am a son of a pastor. I grew up in the Dakotas. I went to Lutheran Elementary School. I went to Luther Prep. I found my way to MLC. I went to chapel multiple times per day at most of the schools that I went to. I was in it. I was on a trajectory to Mequon, to go to the seminary and be a pastor. My mom is 4 generations before her were men who started Wells churches in Wisconsin. Like, I was genetically predisposed to be a called worker in the Wells system. But when I got to MLC, a very interesting thing happened. I had no longer had someone tell me directly what to do. I was my own individual. I think I went to church 2 times in 2 years while studying to be a pastor. There are forces that work against us. But you heard all of the things that I do today. I am incredibly passionate about selfless service to our community, to those in need, to the youth of our congregation and our community, and to do so with the love of Jesus for some very specific reasons, which I'll share with you today. I share all that with you for context, because throughout this presentation, you're going to hear there's not going to be a right time. There's not going to be the perfect life situation where you find yourself that it's the absolute right time for me to raise my hand and serve. I left MLC. I moved to beautiful, sunny Fargo, North Dakota. It is as bad as the movie. In many cases worse. They still have the wood chipper from the movie on display at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. That is a fact. But I'm in Fargo, and I find myself separated from the Lord, right? Lifelong Christian, go to church all the time, but when I'm left to myself, Satan got after me. I found myself The exact moment that I could pinpoint rock bottom, I'm in a studio apartment and an air mattress on the floor, watching Patrick Swayze in the movie Roadhouse. That's how specific. I hope and pray none of you ever have gone through something like that where you know the exact point where you hit rock bottom. But God chased after me. By the grace of God, shortly after that period of my life, I met my wife. We decided together that the Lord was very important to us. She was kind of floating around too. We were going to make church a foundation of our relationship. We went and found a church. We grew in our relationship together, had 2 beautiful daughters, still do, as a matter of fact. We were starting to get back on the right path, right? About halfway through our marriage, I established a personal mission statement through some processes at work. My personal mission statement, which I still carry with me today, is to glorify my Lord in everything that I do in order to have an eternal impact on Jesse, Lucy, Sally, and the world around me, and inspire others to do the same. Fast forward to 2020, that was going to be my year. I was volunteering at different places. You know, I was doing the usual things that I think a lot of people do. Through work, I was volunteering for Habitat for Humanity, for the United Way, you know, doing good, right? Like, it's good to do good. Let's do good. I was doing that, but it wasn't filling me, right? It wasn't my calling. I didn't, you know, it was the good thing to do. So I'm going to do that. But 2020 was the year, right? So my wife and I would, for several years in a row, we would have either a single word or a short phrase that would be the theme for our year. That year, it was expand our impact. And then came March of 2020, and I did the exact opposite. I, as an extreme extrovert, get filled up by rooms filled with 500 men that I don't know, that I can go introduce myself to and get to know them and build relationships. Now I'm at home with my family, who I love, but I wasted it. I felt sorry for myself. I struggled with massive levels of anxiety. I'm never going to sell anything in my job. I don't even know if my company's going to be around by the end of COVID. Like, this is terrible. This is the worst possible decision I could make, or that could happen to me, right? It was all about me, right? And so we needed a change. We made a decision as a family to move to Wisconsin. Thank goodness, it's beautiful here. I love it here. I have a ton of family here. We needed people surrounding us in community. We needed to be able to connect with my brother, my sister, who's now my daughter's 2nd grade teacher. We have a ton of friends, and we made a ton more, and we're thriving. And that is when God introduced me to Safe Families. Safe Families is rooted in faith, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to keep children safe and families together. How do we do that? We work directly with churches to identify volunteers of willing, able individuals who want to raise their hand and say, hey, I can help. And the people we serve are the people that God talks about directly in the Bible. I'm really glad that we're here. This is super relevant. Do you know the vast majority of the people that we help through Safe Families that are either in crisis or isolation or going through trauma are well-intentioned women who suffer from the epidemic of super weak men. They're not willing to take on their responsibilities. They struggle with addiction to drugs and alcohol. That puts them in legal problems. They're not willing, or even in some cases able, to provide for their families. And they just don't want to, right? So what happens? You have a mom who's left with 5 kids or more, some of whom don't have more than a high school education, if that. They don't have structure. In some cases, they're addicted to the same drugs that that the male in their life was either using himself or dealing. It's gross. So we got introduced to Safe Families at Emmanuel because Emmanuel, as Tim said, chose to open the doors to an opportunity for people like me, well-intentioned, people who grew up in the church, fell away a bit, lost my way, finding my way back. But you get involved with an organization like Safe Families, and you are the hands and feet of our Lord in the world. That changes your perspective on absolutely everything. And that is the reason why I am passionate about my faith, my relationship with my Lord. I'm more patient with my children. And the reason why we're able to do all of these things isn't because I'm the big, great, passionate guy that I raise my hand and I'm going to go and do it. No, my wife got me into Safe Families. Our girls come alongside us to support families. The reason why we're talking to you about Safe Families today isn't a straight pitch on if you're going to be in the nonprofit world as a congregation, if you work with Safe Families, that's the answer. Safe Families is one opportunity. I want you to process, as we're talking today, a few things. One, is Safe Families for me? I hope so. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I wanted to be the board chair. We house children all the time. It's awesome. You see genuine change for the positive in people's lives. But I want you to process, what's that for you? We're going to talk about 2 organizations today. I'm passionate about it, but I'm passionate as much about the concept as I am about the specific organizations that I serve. Because when you get to see genuine change in the lives of individuals, some of whom didn't believe before Safe Families or BioGirls showed up, now they believe because you took the opportunity to share your faith through action, changes your life. So there's a lot of different ways to volunteer with Safe Families. We are an organization that is relationship builders and connectors. So you have individuals who are in need. You've got, again, a lot of times single mothers who are struggling. The reason why we moved to Appleton is because we have an army of support, right? We have our network. I've got multiple siblings. I have lifelong friends. I've been friends with Tim and his wife for many years. So it was a really good fit for us to come because when we have a need, what do? We pick up the phone and say, my brother Kevin is here today. Like, hey, Kev, can you come pick up the kids? I got to go run and do this. Or, hey, we got to be out of town for a work trip together, my wife and I. Julie, can you take the girls for us? Absolutely, 100%. The people that we serve don't have that. They don't have community. They are in isolation, and they are trying desperately to get themselves out of situations that precipitate their children going into foster care. And once they get in, it's really, really hard to get them out, particularly if you've struggled with addiction or the law. So we get to be the bridge in Jesus' name. We step in to support. We step in to serve. You'll see here, this is an example. I'll tell you exactly. That's Tara. And those are just 2 of her 5 children that we served. But we get to serve and support people who don't have that network. I love the terms that they used. It really spoke to me right away. Radical hospitality, disruptive generosity, compassion fueled by mercy and the love of Christ. It's a lot of different ways to volunteer with Safe Families. This is why it's a really nice blueprint. Again, if you want to learn more about Safe Families, I'm here for it. I love it. And I think it'll absolutely set your congregation on fire. for love for Jesus and love for others. But it's really approachable, right? There's a lot of different ways to volunteer with Safe Families because everyone understands fully that we are busy. That is a constant. That will never change. And so it's an approachable way to identify an opportunity to be able to serve. You can start by being a resource friend. Provide money to provide a larger item that a family needs. Make a meal. Provide normal household items, right? That's approachable. You can get access to the program, identify where you want to lean in. We also have family friends, so you take that next step up. We're talking about people who don't have individuals that they're able to call and say, hey, my car broke down. I have to go to the hospital. I have to go to a doctor appointment. The kids can't get to school. I need a friend to pick up the phone and say, hey, can you drive my kids to school? Can you pick me up, right? Simple things that we do for those that we love every single day. We're doing this for someone that we don't know because that's what God's called us to do. Okay? That is an approachable way to be God's hands and feet in the world. Next stage is a family coach. You can help them with some of those life skills, right? I didn't finish high school. I got to go get my GED. I don't have a driver's license. I don't have a car. Can you help me put a financial plan together that puts me on a path for success long term, right? We're not just forking over cash and saying, hey, good luck. No, we're building into these people, building relationships so that we set them on a path for success in their life. And the best part, we do it in Jesus' name so that when they get exposure to people who are selflessly serving others in the name of Jesus, they're going to find out why. This is a big one. There's a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong in the lives of people that don't have that support. And this is when children go into foster care. So the car broke down, so I couldn't go to work, so I didn't get a job. I got to go to job interviews, so I'm going to leave my 1-year-old and their older siblings home by themselves. Somebody calls CPS on me, or even worse, I'm just in a cycle of addiction that I cannot get myself out of for a multitude of reasons, probably generational. It's how they were raised, and all they did was taught to survive, and if they can't handle it, they're going to lean into the things that help them forget that for a brief moment, only to find out it's worse on the other side. I have to go to the hospital. I have an extended surgery. Whatever the circumstances are where they physically can't be present as a parent, this is that highest level of stepping up to help support. So to give you a personal example of why I'm so passionate specifically about Safe Families and selfless service in Jesus' name is because my interaction with Safe Families absolutely changed my life. Because I have it all. I have everything I need. I have a very nice home. I have a really good job, a wife who loves me, girls who are Christians and go to a Christian school. I've never gone hungry, which you can tell. I've never lacked anything, really. I am blessed beyond all measure. And when you get exposure to people that are on the polar opposite side of that equation, it changes your perspective on everything. So we had the opportunity, the picture was up before of Tara and 2 of her daughters. She has 5 children and a 6th who's grown and out of the house. So she's in it. The father of her children was a drug addict, dealing drugs. She was addicted to the drugs that he was selling. He's going to prison. She has 5 kids. She's now in trouble with the law for being addicted to fentanyl and using, and her kids aren't going to school. They have no structure. If she doesn't go to rehab, she's screwed. So she got connected to Safe Families And my family, not just me, who said, I'm going to be the leader of this family and we're going to do this, my family together, because we are passionate about safe families and service to others in Jesus' name, we collectively decided, hey, I think we got to do it. And think about that timing too for me. So I have two girls. They were 4 and 6 at the time. We brought in a 5-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old. We've been out of diapers for quite a while. Like, we were on cruise control as it relates to parenting. Like, the girls were starting to figure things out. And now we just dumped proactively and willingly a massive amount of disruptive chaos into our life. It was really hard. Probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I'd rather raise infants, again, multiple, before I take my nice, super comfortable, perfect life family and bring in kids who have no structure, who don't know Jesus, and if they do, it's very little. It's extremely hard and it's extremely disruptive to an otherwise very easy life. But we hung on to these kids for several weeks. Mom went through, and fortunately, she's got a lot of kids. We didn't take them all. We partnered with another family because, there's a lot of volunteers at Emmanuel. There's 300 volunteers in the Appleton area, right? It's not just Emmanuel that's doing this. It's a lot of other Wells churches that are coming together to say, hey, I want to raise my hand too, right? So there's multiple families serving this one family unit. Her name is Tara. Tara goes to rehab. She recovers. This was 3.5 years ago. She's still sober today. She attends a church in Watertown. Her kids are in school. They're thriving. They're playing sports. They go to church. She speaks at church to talk about all of the challenges that she's gone through and why you yourself should be confident that the Lord has your back. Guess what? Before Tara got introduced to Safe Families, she told our executive director, Betsy, she's like, before all these people who didn't know me showed up to help, I didn't even know if God existed. And matter of fact, I was quite certain that he didn't, because what God would allow me to be in the spot that I am right now. Think about that for a second. And then compare that to the words that I said at the beginning. Why am I so passionate about volunteering in Jesus' name? Is because you can have not just physical and worldly impact on people. We were given the opportunity because the Holy Spirit put us in a position to have an eternal impact on not only the life of Tara, but her kids, people that Tara's going to witness to, right? And it's all because we decided that we're going to get a little bit uncomfortable. It wasn't easy. But now we love it, and we can't get enough of it. And that's why I'm the board chair, and that's why I advocate for it wherever I go. I'm going to keep coming back to this because I don't want you to get lost in this to be a pitch for Safe Families. If you want to get involved, we're 100% here for that. Safe Families goes from Milwaukee to Green Bay to Madison and Watertown. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to volunteer for Safe Families. And if your church is not a member church, it's really easy to get to be a part of it. But that's not my sole point, right? Like, that would be awesome. I would love that, and that would make my day. But I want you to consider and process what's your Safe Families? What's the thing that you're passionate about that you can say, because I am a man of his word? God calls us not to just be men of his word, calls us men of his word are men of action. Right? So, in addition to Safe Families at our congregation, we also participate with an organization called Bio Girls. So the company that I work for has a lot of women who volunteer for this organization. So I've heard about Bio Girls for probably about the last 10 years. I get emails in my inbox. You should volunteer for Bio Girls. There's opportunities to provide money to come and go to the 5K that we put on and volunteer with your time. And I'm like, well, obviously I can dismiss this. I don't really care at this time. I didn't have any kids yet. Like, I don't really care about a girls' science program. Like, I don't really understand what it is. And then after we moved here, I actually read one of the emails and clicked into it and identified what it actually was. BIO is an acronym for Beautiful Inside and Out. It's a 12-week program that builds into girls in grades 2 through 6 to build into them spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and physically, to make sure that we are creating an environment for girls where they're building each other up instead of cutting each other down. That gives them the self-esteem necessary to, when they get to, perhaps FVL someday or get into their adulthood, get into their adult life, that they're the kind of people who want to raise their hands and do something like Safe Families or build into others like Bio Girls. So when I figured out what it was, and being the father of a girl in 2nd grade and another girl in kindergarten who was soon to be in 2nd grade in a couple of years, I was like, I got to do this. Like, I don't think I have a choice. Like, if I'm going to be a man of action and a man of his word, I've got to step up and raise my hand and say, I think we got to rally people around this. But what I didn't do is decide in and of myself that I was going to do this. And I was going to say no to a few other things that were prioritized by my wife. And I was going to do it because that's what I decided. No, I researched the heck out of it. I identified all the effort that would have to go into it. And I went over there and I talked to Jessie and I said, Jess, I think we got to do this. Here's what it's all about. And she's all in, right? So the reason why I am allowed to be as passionate as I am is because I don't do it alone. Is I find areas that I can lean into with my family. When we host kids, guess who's there? My wife and girls. Guess what we talk about when we talk about how we volunteer for Safe Families? Well, this is what God's called us to do, girls. Modeling that behavior for them so they see that it's not about me. It's not about us. It's about what eternal impact can we have on other people. And we also build into them through a 12-week self-esteem building, faith building, physical fitness building program. All I had to do was talk to 10 women who are willing to talk to 40 girls, facilitate an environment, get buy-in from Tim because it's a Christ-centered program that allows us to talk to girls again and again and again about the love of Jesus and what that means for them in their life. And all I had to do was gather people around a cause. Now we're in our 3rd year. So 40 girls times 3, impact of 120 young people, and we're not even close to done. We just had our first session on Thursday, which is absolutely incredible. I don't necessarily recommend proactively putting yourself in a room full of girls ages 8 through 12 on purpose. But this group of girls knows what they're there for. Their parents are extremely excited about the program. We do a large group discussion and devotion, and then I go off to the side, and we have groups of 4 girls who talk to a mentor that's not their mom, that helps them get uncomfortable, talk about hard things, tell them that they can do hard things. And it absolutely fills my bucket. That's my thing. I love these organizations. They matter to me a lot. and it has a profound eternal impact that speaks directly to my personal mission statement that I care deeply about. What's that for you? Do you know anybody in your church, in your household, in your family that would be a really good fit, and you think you've talked to them and they say, hey, I think that I could run a BioGirls site. All the materials are put together for you. All you need is time and effort and influence to be able to get people to rally around that cause with you. Is it Safe Families? An opportunity to be a connection point to a family in isolation. What is that for you? It doesn't have to be these. These are awesome because they're already built and they're already available. If you want to get involved with these or have a conversation about them, let us know. But the reason why all of us are here is because we are men of His Word. And my call to action and my ask of all of you is process that. Identify what that means for you, because I would argue that men of His Word, genuine men of His Word, are men of action. And I encourage you to identify what that means in your life.
Just a couple more things on your sheet. I didn't get involved in this world, so I moved to Appleton, and there was someone in our congregation that worked with Pillars. It's the homeless shelter in Appleton. And I remember having at her house once for dinner and just hearing her describe what she's doing. And then she kind of just opened my eyes to this part of the community. And for a lot of different reasons, my eyes are much more opened. At times, I'm able to, if you want to know your community, do the third shift with the police, hang out with them for a night. And they really just kind of opened everything up to me and seeing what's going on in the Fox Valley. And I asked him a question. It was a young officer I was riding around with that night. I said to him, because he grew up in Appleton, I said, did you know any of this was here until you became a cop? When I talk about all the different problems and all the things going on, he goes, no. He goes, I drove up and down College Avenue. I shopped in this area, and I did not know all of these things and needs existed until I became a police officer. And I didn't know until someone pointed them out to me. Yes?
Question.
Yeah.
How does Emmanuel approach? Do you screen particular groups to interact? Do you have groups approaching your congregation? And do you approve a group and then encourage your people to volunteer for that? What's the
yeah, that's a good question. All the above. So here's kind of, this is everything in a nutshell, and I think this will answer your question. So for instance,
how did those groups get on your list?
that's through me. But here's how they get on my list. So we have a food pantry drive, and that's Apple Valley. So that's easy lift for the whole church. We have the giving tree. And so in the middle of church at Christmas, you might have one of these too. I have enough members that are connected to different nonprofits or people that know things that you hear about things. So, hey, do you need it? Like we'll call up SOAR Fox Valleys. It's developmentally disabled. And what you need, we have a giving tree. Are there people that you work with that could use something at Christmas? Yep. And so they give us a list to put on the tree. Heads Up Fox Valley, another group. Hey, what do you need? Put that on the tree. Community Clothes Closet. They put things on their tree. That's like little low-hanging fruit. All we do is buy something, give it to them at Christmas. But then we start interacting with these kind of groups. You kind of can understand a little bit more what they're doing. It kind of allows us to kind of vet them. Once you get into one world in your community, the whole world is all a part of that. All these community groups are all together. Once you have access and you start understanding, you're going to start to see they start coming out of the woodwork. And you know things that and then you're right. People do now contact me. I've sit in on conference calls once in a while just listening to it. But then we start doing things in our church to model that. You have another question. Go ahead. Were you going to say something?
How do you integrate that with encouraging your people's gifts?
So,
spiritual gifts.
Yeah. So we essentially make it part of our DNA.
And you're encouraging them
Yep.
to join a non-Lutheran agency.
Sure. And so I guess it's not our agencies we work with are not religiously affiliated. That's a very important to understand, except World Relief, and we don't really do much with them. We might listen a little bit what they're doing. These are all inside of the nonprofit world that don't have, in their mission statement, have nothing to do with spreading the gospel in Jesus. It's just helping. But what these organizations understand is they want to be a part of us because we have people. And so they don't care about, it's really a neat, none of that becomes an issue for me ever. It's actually allowed me, to be honest, you'll find me in the Christmas service at St. Pius every Christmas because they're really close to family through this organization. They're now part of my family. I hang out with them. I take them there. So all of this just kind of gets me and my people into these places. And then here's what happens. The more you do this, and we have like Get To projects, so it just has become a part of our culture. And then this last one, if you're a mission partner for Emmanuel, that means you get, in our budget, you get support from our staff to do that. You have people, you have prime real estate. We are all into these groups as an as a church. And we'll probably only have two. We have two right now. I don't see us going much more, maybe a third one, because that's a heavy lift, active involvement. But then when you do that, it's amazing that it's not even specific after a while. And this is because we're big now, right? All of my members are almost every single one of these. I have a member that's on a board. We have just people that are involved in different ways, from Habitat for Humanity to the people are doing it on their own. Growth groups, picking up, just giving tree, basket for elderly. It just becomes part of the culture that becomes a part of Emmanuel. And so they know that when I talk about gather, grow, give, and go in our mission statement, when I'm having a sermon series, there's going to be one Sunday where I'm going to talk about how are you giving of your time and your resources to help somebody that doesn't have what you have. And so I'm very specific, very intentional as the pastor. I myself am very active, but that's not because they ask me to be active, these groups. It's because I really want to be. I like the fun, the chaos. I like being involved in that thing. It has opened up so many doors, not so much for members. This is not a membership drive. Don't mistake this. But what it has done for us, I can show you at church on a Sunday when families are coming in, I know who some of the families they're bringing that might be they were in contact through some of the different groups. And so you'll see, and we don't say, oh, look at that, here's a new safe family in church. We don't ever highlight that. But the church knows, and the people know, and they are very welcoming. Where am I at for time, Phil? You're quick. Oh, a couple minutes. The one major blessing we had when we first started this, long story short, a man was in my office, hooked on meth, terrible, disastrous life. He started that. We got connected with him, safe families, his kids. Over a couple-year process, he joined our church, took big class, got married, connected with a whole different group of people, right? And people saw this. He became a big part of what we were doing. And he is an outlier, right? That almost never happens, to have someone that bad off actually make it this way. But when our church kind of saw that, it was like just the right moment that we're trying to introduce some new thing that everyone kind of got excited around him. And so for us, it's just a matter of, if you don't get involved because of the messiness or because I'm not sure what to do, and there really isn't any fellowship, any doctor, none of that is a part of this world. We're just trying to help people. And that's all these organizations are doing, is helping people. And when I'm involved with them, when I listen to them talk, you know right away what their angle is. I got off a board in Appleton once because they had a new director, and they put their pronouns underneath their name. And I am the pastor of the church. I'm here to help this group. I'm not here to cause waves, so I just kind of like, hey, now see that is true. I am too busy for that group because I'm not going to carve out time, because I just don't want to get it. They don't want to have that conversation with me, and I don't want to have it with them. And I'm just here to get involved and help, not go into that world. And so it's pretty easy to identify that in this day and age right away. But at the end of the day, if you don't ever just get involved, you never have the opportunities that get there the more you're involved in it. It's such a really neat thing. Yeah, go ahead.
What you just said is
Yep.
reverse true as well, in the fact that you're a
approaching an organization to see if you can work together, they realize that you're going to be talking about our gospel message, whether it's more passive.
Sure.
They come to accept that that's part of the deal.
They don't care.
They don't care.
They don't care. I think that thought is a little more of an outlier than a reality anymore. The people that care are kind of the organizations that are the funders.
Okay.
That's why it's hard. It's hard for us to be a part of because they don't want Emmanuel Church to hook up shop in downtown Appleton. But they would love to have Pillars in downtown Appleton. But what does Pillars need? Volunteers. Here's the church. And so essentially it's kind of a triangle. But if I said, I want to put up shop in downtown Appleton, they don't want me there because they're going to plug your Christian message of the main funding model. So it really, it has never been an issue once for me.
Can I share a point?
Go ahead.
Too?
Yeah.
I think you asked an excellent question, and so did you over here. The thing that I think it should be illustrated really well with these two specific examples is that these were passion projects and be a model to other people to want to do the same thing right alongside of them. So it definitely is something that the reason why we're talking about it is that it should come from all of us.
We're out of time. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.